What's up, everybody? My name is Josh LaFleur from Late Start Piano. Today, we're going to be talking about how having other musical instrument experience will help you learn the piano. So, if you played guitar in the past, you played flute, saxophone, trumpet, how can you take the skills that you learned from that instrument and apply it to learning the piano? If you're interested now in learning the piano, how can we take those prior skills and apply it? What's going to be easier for you if you now want to learn to play the piano? First point is hopefully you already know how to read some sheet music. So when I was in school, I was in the school band for saxophone for a couple of years, freshman to sophomore year, and I knew how to read treble clef. So I knew how to read treble clef already, and I did not know how to read bass clef, but I did know how to read treble clef, so that was one less thing I needed to learn on the piano. And if you've played any kind of band instruments like that, saxophone, clarinet, flute, trumpet, trombone, um, alto sax, tenor sax, bass sax, anything like that, you're going to need to know how to read sheet music, either bass clef or treble clef. You're going to know how to read either one of them. And the good thing about that is you can then apply it to the piano. So it's one less clef you have to learn. It's one less thing you have to learn when going to the piano. For those of you who don't know, if you've ever seen piano sheet music, you'll see a treble clef, which kind of looks like a G up at the top. Then you have that bracket that connects the two measures or the two bar lines. And then you have the bass clef underneath. It's got like the F shape and then the two dots. For the piano, you have to read both because in general, your right hand plays in the higher register, which is the treble clef. And then your left hand plays in the lower register of the piano, which is the bass clef. And we have two different clefs for a reason. But basically, if you, in short, as far as the difference is, treble clef, the notes are in a different spot versus bass clef. So you think about the top line in treble clef is an F, top line in the bass clef is an A, right? So things like that it's a little bit different depending on which clef you're reading, depends on where the notes are in that clef and in that sheet music in itself. So that's point number one. If you already know how to read one of them, say you know how to read bass clef, that's great. You can translate that. If you know how to read treble clef, that's great too, because you can also translate that to the piano. So it's one less thing you need to know how to learn if you already know one of the two. Point number two is you understand the process of learning new songs. So if you have, again, if you played one of the band instruments, like I said, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, flute, or if you played guitar, or if you played harmonica, or if you played accordion, if you have some experience playing those instruments, then you know the process of learning a song. You know what works for you, you know what doesn't work for you, and you can take those skills, you can take the knowledge that you already know, and once again, apply it to the piano as well. So it's going to make your process a little bit easier. I think sometimes beginners get frustrated with how long it actually takes to learn a song, especially if it's outside of the method books and we're talking about learning maybe a 4-page or a 5-page song. People can get frustrated by that, and it is daunting, especially if you've never done anything like that before, where if you played another instrument before, you've kind of gone through this process already. You know what it looks like. You know, there's probably going to be spots in the song that are more difficult for you. There's going to be spots that are more easier for you. And you kind of know how to balance that mentally as well and not get super discouraged, but stay on track and be able to actually complete that song. Completing a song from start to finish, even if it's a longer or shorter song, whether it's a 1-page song or a 5-page song, that's a skill in itself as well. Actually going from the beginning, taking a brand new piece of music you've never seen before, going from the beginning of that and actually being able to play all the way through, especially if you can do it by memory, that is a skill in itself. And having that skill is important, especially for the piano, because there tends to be longer pages of music, because we have the grand staff, right? The two clefs, the bass and the treble. And especially like classical music, it can go on for a lot of pages. So if you already have the skill down of learning a new piece of music, then you're going to be ahead of a lot of other people who've never played an instrument who don't have the skill. Point number three is you understand the ups and downs. So if you've been playing, let's say, guitar for 5 years, 10 years, you know the ups and downs of learning that instrument. You know You had really good days of your practice session where you felt like, I'm really improving. You felt like I made a great choice. I love playing guitar, for example, and I'm going to keep going. And then you've also had the bad days where you feel like you are terrible at the guitar. You feel like you had a terrible practice session. You feel like you're not getting any better. And maybe you're thinking about quitting, right? You've had those extremes, ups and downs. I think most people who've played an instrument for a longer period of time, they have these kind of feelings that they go through. And if you've been playing, I would say even for a year, even for 1 year, any instrument, you've probably had these thoughts as well, that you felt either really good one day and then really bad the next day. But again, if you have played an instrument and you have had that experience, you understand it's just par for the course, right? That's just the way it is. You're going to have the good days and you're going to have the bad days. You're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs playing that instrument. The important thing is that you keep going and that you continue to practice the way that you need to, and that you are continuing to improve at the piano or whatever instrument that you're playing, and that you don't quit. So another good thing, if you have this prior musical experience, if you played another instrument before, is you know that this is to be expected. So you're not going to get over depressed on the bad days, and you're not going to get over, I guess, happy, if that's even a word, on the up days, right? You're not going to get on one extreme or the other. You understand that you're going to be more stoic. You understand that it's all part of the process. You're not going to get too high on your emotions or too low on your emotions. And that's the way you want to be. Point number 4 is other certain skills that translate are things like, you think of performance anxiety, dealing with that, and you think of like a rhythm and the feel of music, right? So again, if you play another instrument, there's going to be a lot of things that you learn, but one of them is rhythm. Rhythm is something that trips up a lot of piano players. I don't know if it's because, well, it is because you have both hands going, so you kind of have to look at two different rhythms at once sometimes. And it's also tough to actually do the counting if you're not used to counting music before and trying to stay on beat and make sure your phrasing is correct. That can also throw a lot of beginners off because it's something brand new to them. But you, having that prior musical experience, you are familiar with different rhythms, right? You've seen a lot of things. You've seen dotted quarters, you've seen triplets, you've seen 16th notes, you've seen eighth notes, you've seen dotted half notes, you've seen dotted eighth notes, you've seen a lot of different things. And once you see some things, like if you think of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the beginning rhythm to that, the very first part, and you start on the eighth note, right? You start the eighth note and then you go to the quarter note. That rhythm throws a lot of people off when they first see it. And I call it the Rudolph rhythm because it's the very beginning of that song. It's the and Dasher and Blitzen and Comet and Cupid, that piece right there, where you start on the eighth note and then you go to the quarter note and then two more eighth notes. That throws a lot of people off. They don't really keep in beat with that. And that's one good example where if you have prior musical experience, chances are you've seen that Rudolph rhythm before and you've probably mastered it. And it's not going to give you a hard time. Another good thing is the performance anxiety. And say you've been playing an instrument a long time, maybe you've gone to different gigs, maybe you played in front of friends and family before, and playing in front of people doesn't really give you a challenge. You've probably played in front of your teacher multiple times if you have been taking lessons for a while. People who are brand new to playing the piano, even playing for their teacher, can give them a hard time. They get that kind of anxious feeling. I'm sure you've had it before. Even I used to have it when I just started playing. You get that anxious feeling because you don't want to make a mistake. You get that performance anxiety, even just playing for your teacher. So if you have some gig experience, if you've played in public before or anything like that, you're not going to have as much anxiety as somebody brand new to the piano. And then the feel. You can have really good feel to the music as well. This is just more being able to express the music. I would say in piano would be more like expressing using the dynamics or the expression on the page. Like, are you playing fortissimo? Are you playing pianissimo? Are you accenting certain notes? Are you ritardando at certain places? Are you slowing down? Right? All of these things matter, right? And that's all the expression piece is how you're playing in those dynamics, and it makes it more musical. It makes it a much more musical piece. If you play prior instruments, you know what good playing sounds like. You know what just reading the ink is, quote unquote, just playing the notes, versus actually expressing what's on the page. There's a big difference between the two. If you have prior musical experience, then you know what I'm talking about. Last point here is your ear is going to be better. So especially if you've been playing guitar and you don't know how to read sheet music, your ear is probably pretty good. You can probably hear chords really well. You can hear melodies. You can hear intervals. All of those kind of things you can probably hear pretty well. And that will translate to the piano. Once you get used to it, you're still going to know what a perfect fifth sounds like. You're still going to know what a major chord sounds like versus a minor chord. You're going to be able to know all of these things. That's going to help you learn songs by ear on the piano and also learn what sounds right versus doesn't sound right. So if you make a mistake, you're going to be able to hear that pretty quickly, right? And I feel like for guitar players, this is a big thing because a lot of guitar players, they don't know how to read sheet music. Whether they just chose not to or they just never needed to, maybe because their ear was so good, but they just never learned how to read sheet music for whatever reason, and they rely a lot on their ear. So if this is you, then your ear training on the piano is going to be really good off the bat as well. So just to recap here, some skills that you can take from prior instruments to the piano are things like reading the sheet music. We had talked about the process for learning new songs, the process of going through the ups and downs on the different days. We talked about learning the rhythm, performance anxiety, the feel, bringing out that musicality, and of course your ear training as well. Your ear in general will be much better. So if you've already played some instrument, you don't have to be as anxious as someone who's brand new. You can take a lot of different skills that you've learned and apply them to the piano as well. So if you like everything you heard here today, I do have 34 essential tips. This is a free guide I created to help the adults, the brand new beginners, adults, people who've never played instruments before, learn how to play the piano. It's going to set you up for success and avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I made when I first started playing. So if you're interested in this, again, it's completely free. You can go to www.latestartpiano.com, click on that big bright button on that page, download that free guide, and you'll be playing piano a lot quicker and you'll be a lot ahead of your peers. Hope that helps. If you like what I said, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll talk to you soon. Again, my name is Josh LaFleur from Late Start Piano.